沿着这条路走，然后在第二个红绿灯右转。
The janitor spoke, and the CEO froze, because what came out of her mouth wasn't English. It was perfect, fluent Mandarin, then Spanish, then French. He stood there, unable to move, realizing he'd walked past this woman 1,000 times and never really saw her. See, she spoke 8 languages. She was days away from a master's degree before her life fell apart. And for 11 years, she'd been mopping floors in silence while everyone treated her like she was invisible. But that one moment, those 3 sentences in Mandarin, changed everything. Pay close attention to what happens next. You know, most of us walk through life never really seeing people. We're too busy, too distracted, too wrapped up in our own little worlds. And sometimes the most extraordinary people are standing right in front of us, and we don't even notice. This is a story about one of those people. Her name was Patricia Coleman, but everyone called her Pat. And for 11 years, she pushed a cleaning cart through the hallways of Riverside Tech Solutions in Portland, Oregon. 11 years of mopping floors, emptying trash cans, wiping down desks that other people sat at during the day. 11 years of being invisible. It was a Tuesday morning in late September when everything changed. The lobby of Riverside Tech was buzzing like it always did around 8:30. People rushing in from the parking lot, clutching their coffee cups, checking their phones, talking about meetings and deadlines. The usual chaos of a workday beginning. And there was Pat in her gray uniform, quietly cleaning the glass doors near the main entrance. That's when David Harrison walked in. David was the CEO, 52 years old, silver hair, expensive suits, the kind of guy who'd built his company from the ground up. He was heading toward the elevators, same as he did every morning, when he heard something that made him stop in his tracks. A voice, speaking in perfect, flowing Japanese. He turned around, confused, thinking maybe one of their tech partners from Tokyo had flown in early. But no, it was Pat. She was standing near the reception desk, talking to an elderly Japanese couple who looked completely lost. They were nodding, smiling, relief washing over their faces as she gave them directions in their own language. David just stood there, staring. He'd seen this woman 100 times, maybe more, always in the background. Always quiet, always invisible. The couple thanked her and walked toward the elevators. Pat turned back to her cleaning cart, and that's when she noticed David watching her. "Morning, sir," she said politely, her voice soft. David blinked, trying to find his words. Were you speaking Japanese?" "Yes, sir." "You speak Japanese?" "Yes, sir." He took a step closer. "How many languages do you speak?" Pat hesitated, like she wasn't sure if this was a trick question. "8, sir." "Well, 9 if you count Latin, but that's just for reading." David felt like someone had just knocked the wind out of him. 8 languages. This woman, who he'd walked past dozens of times without a second thought, spoke 8 languages. "What's your name?" he asked. "Patricia Coleman. Most people call me Pat." "Pat, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to talk to you." She looked surprised, maybe even a little scared. "Right now?" "Yes. Please. It's important." She glanced at her cart, then back at him. "All right." They rode the elevator up to the executive floor in silence. Pat had never been up there before. When they stepped out, she looked around at the polished floors, the modern art on the walls, the glass offices with their million-dollar views of the city. David led her into his office and gestured to a chair. "Please, sit down." She sat carefully, hands folded in her lap, back straight, waiting. David sat across from her, leaning forward. "Pat, I need you to help me understand something. How does someone who speaks 8 languages end up working as a janitor?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. She just looked at him, trying to decide if he really wanted to know or if this was just curiosity that would fade as soon as she left the room. Finally, she spoke. "I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. My parents didn't have much, but they believed in education, believed in it like some people believe in God. I got a scholarship to the University of Washington, studied linguistics. I was good at it, really good. I was halfway through my master's degree when my mom got diagnosed with cancer. She paused, her voice steady but softer now. I came home to take care of her. Then my dad had a heart attack 6 months later. He didn't make it. And suddenly, I was alone with hospital bills I couldn't pay and a degree I couldn't finish. Then I got pregnant. The father didn't stick around. So I did what I had to do. I worked. Restaurants, nursing homes, grocery stores. Whatever would pay the rent and keep my baby fed. David sat perfectly still listening. A friend told me about this job 11 years ago. Night shift, good hours, steady pay. It let me be there for my daughter during the day. So I took it, and I've been here ever since. But the languages, David said, "You kept learning?" Pat nodded. I couldn't stop. It's the only thing that made me feel like I was still me, you know? I'd go to the library, check out books, listen to language tapes while I cleaned. It kept me sharp, kept me feeling like I hadn't completely lost myself. She looked down at her hands. Most people never asked. They saw the uniform and they just assumed. That word hung in the air between them. Assumed. David felt something twist in his chest. Guilt, maybe. Shame. Here he was running a tech company that prided itself on finding talent, on innovation, on seeing potential. And for 11 years, one of the most talented people in the building had been right under his nose, and he'd never once looked. "Pat," he said quietly, "what if I told you I want to change that?" She looked up at him, eyes cautious. Change what? Everything. The next morning, David did something he'd never done before. He went down to the maintenance level before sunrise, found Pat restocking her cleaning supplies, and asked her to help him with something. "There's a meeting upstairs," he said. "We've got visitors from our Seoul office, and our translator just canceled. Can you help?" Pat looked at him like he'd just asked her to fly. "You wanted to translate? In a business meeting?" "I heard you speak Japanese yesterday like you were born in Tokyo. I'm guessing Korean isn't much different for you." She almost smiled. "I can handle it." 20 minutes later, Pat was sitting in a conference room on the 15th floor, surrounded by executives in suits, speaking fluent Korean to 3 business partners who'd flown in from South Korea. David watched from across the table as the entire atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension melted. People relaxed. They laughed. They connected. When the meeting ended, one of the Korean visitors turned to David and said in English, "Where'd you find her? She's better than any translator we've worked with." David glanced at Pat, who was quietly gathering up empty coffee cups. "She's been here the whole time." After the visitors left, David caught up with Pat in the hallway. "You were incredible in there." She shrugged. "I just did what you asked." "No," he said. "You did way more than that. You made them feel heard. You built trust in 20 minutes that would have taken us weeks to build otherwise." Pat didn't say anything, but he could see something shift in her eyes. Something like hope, maybe, or just the smallest belief that maybe, just maybe, someone finally saw her. That afternoon, David made a decision. He called HR, called his executive team, and told them he was creating a new position. Director of Global Relations. Someone who could handle international communications, cultural consulting, language services. Someone who could bridge the gaps his company had been stumbling over for years. And he wanted Pat for the job. The announcement went out 2 days later. A company-wide email. Short, professional, direct. Patricia Coleman was being promoted from custodial staff to Director of Global Relations, effective immediately. The reactions came fast. Some people were thrilled. They'd seen Pat around for years, always kind, always helpful. Good for her, they said. She deserves it. But others, they weren't so kind. In the break room, 2 project managers whispered over their lunch. "I've got a degree from Stanford and 3 years of experience, and I'm still waiting for a promotion." She was cleaning toilets last week. In the marketing department, someone sent a sarcastic Slack message. "Guess we're just promoting janitors now." Cool. Pat felt at the moment she walked into her new office on the 12th floor. It was small but clean. A desk, a chair, a computer, a window that looked out over the city. To most people, it was nothing special. To Pat, it looked like a dream she'd stopped letting herself have. But dreams don't come easy, and not everyone was ready to let her have this one. Her first real test came 3 days later. Victor Brennan, the VP of Operations, showed up at her door with a stack of files and a look that said he wasn't impressed. "So you're the new director," he said flatly. "That's right. You have experience running international operations?" "No, sir, but I have experience understanding people, and I speak their languages." He dropped the files on her desk. "We got contract issues in Berlin, vendor problems in Mexico City, and a partnership falling apart in Manila. Think you can handle that?" Pat looked him in the eye. "Give me 48 hours. Victor smirked and walked out. Pat didn't sleep much that night. She went through every file, translated every document, made notes in the margins in 3 different languages. She reached out to contacts, asked questions, built connections. By the time Victor came back 2 days later, she'd resolved the Berlin contract issue, set up a call with the vendor in Mexico City, and drafted a proposal to salvage the Manila partnership. He stood in her doorway, reading her report, and for the first time, he didn't have a smirk on his face. "This is good work," he said quietly. "Thank you." He nodded and left. That was all. No apology, no congratulations. But it was enough. Later that week, David stopped by her office. "How are you holding up?" Pat leaned back in her chair. "Some people are rooting for me. Some people want me to fail. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be." She smiled just a little. "Maybe not, but I am." David looked at her for a long moment. "You know, I grew up poor. My dad worked in a warehouse. My mom cleaned houses. I worked 3 jobs to get through college. And when I finally made it into a room with people who had money and power, they treated me like I didn't belong, like I was pretending." Pat nodded. "So you know what this feels like?" "Yeah," he said. "I do. And I'm not going to let them do to you what they tried to do to me." The next week, David made another move. He renamed the main conference room, the one where new hires trained and where leadership meetings happened. He took down the old plaque and put up a new one, the Coleman Room. No big ceremony, no speeches, just a quiet acknowledgement that Patricia Coleman mattered, that her story, her struggle, her brilliance deserved to be remembered. And when people asked why, David's answer was simple: because she reminded us that greatness doesn't always wear a suit. It's funny how one person's story can change an entire place. Within a month, Patricia Coleman wasn't just doing her job. She was rewriting what people thought was possible. She took calls with clients in Germany, Brazil, South Korea, and Egypt, switching languages like someone changing radio stations. She caught mistakes in old contracts that had cost the company thousands of dollars. She built relationships with international partners that had been cold for years. But more than that, she started changing the culture. People who'd been overlooked started speaking up. The quiet receptionist who spoke 3 languages offered to help with a client call. The warehouse supervisor who'd immigrated from Vietnam started sharing ideas in meetings. Pat made space for them. She listened. She lifted them up. One afternoon, a young intern named Lila knocked on her door. Lila was 19, shy, first-generation American, and terrified of messing up. "Miss Coleman, can I ask you something?" "Of course. And please call me Pat." Lila sat down, fidgeting with her hands. "How did you do it? How did you go from where you were to where you are now?" Pat smiled gently. "I didn't do anything magical, sweetheart. I just kept learning. I kept believing that I had something to offer, even when nobody else believed it. And when someone finally gave me a chance, I didn't waste it." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "My mom cleans offices. She speaks 4 languages. And I've spent my whole life embarrassed to tell people what she does." Pat reached across the desk and took her hand. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. Your mom is strong. She's doing what she has to do to take care of you. That's not something to hide. That's something to honor." Lila nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you." After she left, Pat sat quietly in her office, staring out the window. She thought about her own daughter, now 28 and working as a nurse in Seattle. She thought about all the years she'd felt invisible, wondering if anyone would ever see her as more than just a woman who emptied their trash. And now, People were seeing her, really seeing her. 2 months later, David asked her to speak at a national business conference in Chicago. The topic was finding hidden talent in your organization. Pat stood on that stage in front of 500 people, wearing a navy blue dress her daughter had helped her pick out, and told her story. Not to brag, not to inspire, just to tell the truth. I wasn't hidden because I was hiding, she said, her voice steady and strong. I was hidden because nobody looked. I spoke 8 languages while I mopped your floors. I had skills, ideas, solutions, but I didn't have a title. I didn't have a degree on the wall. So I was invisible. She paused, looking out at the crowd. How many people in your company are invisible right now? How many people are brilliant, capable, ready, and you're walking right past them because they don't fit the mold you're used to? The room was silent. Don't wait 11 years to see someone, she continued. Don't wait until you happen to overhear them speaking a language you recognize. Look at people. Ask them questions. Give them chances. Because talent doesn't need permission. It just needs an opportunity. When she finished, the room stood up, a standing ovation that went on for 2 full minutes. Afterward, a man approached her with tears in his eyes. My brother stocks shelves at a grocery store. He taught himself coding at night. He's been applying tech jobs for 3 years and gets rejected every time because he doesn't have a degree. Pat touched his arm. Tell him to keep going. Tell him someone will see him. And when they do, he needs to be ready. The man nodded, his voice breaking. Thank you. Pat flew back to Portland that night, exhausted but full. When she got home, she sat on her couch in her small apartment, the same apartment she'd lived in for 15 years, and she cried. Not sad tears, just release. All those years of being unseen, of wondering if she mattered, of fighting to keep going when everything felt impossible. It was all worth it. A few weeks later, David called her into his office. I've got something to tell you. She sat down, curious. We're launching a new program, he said. Internal development for non-executive staff. Language training, leadership coaching, career pathways. We're calling it Voices Rising. Pat's eyes widened. That's incredible. And I want you to run it. She stared at him. Me? You know better than anyone what it's like to have potential and know where to put it. You know how to see people. I can't think of anyone better. Pat sat back, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say yes. She smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes. 6 months later, Voices Rising had enrolled 43 employees from custodial, warehouse, reception, and support staff. 3 of them had already been promoted. 2 were learning new languages. 1 was finishing her college degree online. And Patricia Coleman, the woman who'd been invisible for 11 years, became the person who made sure no one else ever had to feel that way again. Because here's the truth that most people forget. Greatness doesn't wear a name tag. Brilliance doesn't need a corner office. Talent doesn't wait for permission. It's already there. In the person refilling your coffee. In the person stocking the shelves. In the person cleaning your floors. All you have to do is look. Really look. And when you finally see them, don't look away. Give them a chance. Give them a voice. Give them a seat at the table. Because the world doesn't need more people who fit the mold. It needs people who break it. People like Patricia Coleman. People who were always extraordinary. They were just waiting for someone to notice.